Hey everyone, David here with High Shelf Gaming. This video is going to be an examination of the roles in Cyberpunk Red, how they compare to Cyberpunk 2020, and how we're going to update them to fit our West Marches game. So strap in, buckle up. If these kind of house rules work for you, great. If they don't, I totally get it. But we're going to jump right in and compare these two games. On the right is the old school Cyberpunk 2020. On the left is new school Cyberpunk Red. In the new book, it's pretty straightforward and easy to kind of delineate each one. Real quick blurb on each of the roles and how they work. On 2020, it's a little bit more spread out. They have a little bit more detail to start with. Couple of things out the gate. A bunch of the roles are not included in the Jumpstart kit. That's fine. None of the special abilities are included except interface. The only complete role, at least for right now, is the Netrunner. The Netrunner has the interface skill detailed with some powers and all of that good stuff. All of the other roles within Cyberpunk Red don't have special abilities right now. So we will be taking the existing special abilities that are in 2020, moving them into Red with a handful of tweaks along the way. You may also notice that there's there's a role that's missing. Everything else is in here, from Rockerboys to Execs, who were once corpos. Lawmen used to be cops, now they're lawmen. So there's been a couple of name changes, but the one that's missing is medtech. Seems like techie and medtech have fused, so we will have to house rule something that will hold us together until the full version comes out. Right out the gate, you'll notice that the descriptions for all of the roles are mostly the same, right? There's a couple of key differences here and there, but on the whole, Rocker Boy, rebels who perform and use rhetoric to fight authority. Okay, well, that's the same in 2020. Over in Cyberpunk Red, solos are assassins, bodyguards, killers, soldiers for hire in a lawless new world. So I'm going to presume that the role ability for solos is pretty much the same in Cyberpunk Red, and I see no reason to change it. Plus to initiative, plus to awareness, super powerful. We love that. Same with Rocker Boy. They're the same basic skill set. I see no reason to change their role ability. They can sway large crowds. That's awesome. Techs, renegade, mechanics, and doctors, patching up meat and metal alike. If I go down to techs, renegade, mechanics, and doctors, right? So same basic description, but now they've been folded into a single role. So instead of having jury rig and med tech, I think was the special ability with a bunch of stuff, we're going to kind of combine these things. The new tech has the ability, of course, to patch things up and get them to working, but more importantly, has the ability to remix cybernetics and tech. Because remember, we're working with a world that there's no more factories. There's a lot of found parts that maybe half of this thing works and half of this other thing works. So the techie is adept at taking them both apart, fusing them back together, and making something new. Maybe we call the new power fusing. I like that for now. We'll work with it. We'll figure out a new name for it. But basically, I want the techie to be able to mix and match old found tech into making new tech, kind of like Borderlands gun style, where you get a bunch of different mods and stuff, or a Fallout 4 style, where you get a bunch of different stuff on your guns. I want that kind of feel for the techies. So I'll be building out some stuff in here that allows them to break down cybernetics, break down tech, and make new stuff with the parts that they have available. So techs are going to see a bit of a boost in our game to give them a little bit more stuff. But basically, jury rig and keeping somebody from dying are pretty similar mechanically. And then they'll have this additional a long-term skill set of mixing things together, fusing parts together to make new and interesting things that are hybrids of old tech. And that'll be their role in this game. Medias, I think that their description is like the same almost, except for It includes social influencers risking it all for the truth. Social influencers, this kind of makes me think of social media and things along those lines. I think that the medias in this game are going to kind of follow what our own news folk have done. You know, back when 2020 was written, it was beautiful, immaculate, handsome reporters, eye on the sky, news reporting at 10, all that kind of stuff. Very authoritative. I think that if a media person is going broad with their message, then their message gets diluted in the new world. I think that if they stay focused within sub-communities, micro-communities, that sort of thing, their message is very, very crisp and clean and targeted to that subculture, much like what you see today with subreddits and Facebook groups and people that kind of self-organize into these little pockets of reality. An adept media who's in one of those pockets can really shape the discussion and vastly change the understanding of reality for a pocket of people that only goes to a single place for their information. And I think that that's going to be the case here in Cyberpunk Red, because there's no global internet, there's regional media conglomerates, there's regional this and that and the other, there's bound to be various pockets of people. And I think that medias as social influencers are going to be really powerful at the small group manipulation, at the small group information broker and shaping of that information. So I'm going to make sure that they're really powerful at that. And for the big broadcasts, maybe they move the needle a little bit. Lawmen. All right, so Lawmen, the description is pretty much the same. Maximum lawmen in mean 21st century streets versus the new one. Maximum lawmen patrolling the mean streets and road warrior highways beyond. So to me, this is more like a paladin or Judge Dredd. Where they go, they're judge, jury, and executioner. So maybe lawmen still use their authority power to make changes and to make people back down, but also they probably use that same power in the courtroom or amongst the, council tribunal or whatever to, sway opinion towards, finding, guilty parties guilty or the party guilty. They weren't guilty by reality. They'll be guilty by the end of this trial. Gosh darn it. So I think that lawmen are going to have definitely the authority thing. I want them to have more stuff, and I want them to have a bigger role on the warrior highways beyond, where they're in the new cities, they're in the new towns, they're, the local sheriff, that kind of thing. So I think that authority ability needs to balloon out a little bit, get freshened up and have some more sway. So I'm going to let that apply in more situations than I maybe would have in 2020. If we go down to execs, corporates, right? The old description was slick business raiders and multimillionaires. Business raiders was like the thing in the 80s. Warren Buffett and all those guys were buying up companies, firing everybody, eating the pensions for themselves. Corporate raiding is not really a thing anymore. Companies have vastly reorganized with 401ks, so raiding them makes a lot less sense now. The new description is corporate power brokers and business raiders fighting to restore the rule of the megacorp. So the corporates have really taken a big step back. They have a lot less at their fingertips. I think the old skill resources still applies, but maybe in fewer situations. Maybe it's less powerful. I might let the power of their purse be its own kind of social weight that they get to fling around a little bit. They're still going to use resources, but I'm going to allow resources to apply in a limited capacity to social situations as someone who shows up dressed to the nines kind of has a presence about them. They're nowhere near a rocker boy. They're nowhere near, a fixer in their wheeling and dealing, but they have a kind of air about them that lends them an authority in a lot of situations. So I'm going to let the corporate power of resources not only get them certain resources from their own corporation and that sort of thing, but also impact a couple of social situations, just so it has a little bit more air in there and has a little bit more flex for them, so they're not just, knocked it down megacorp, former megacorp execs now turned regional corp execs, and it just kind of sucks being an exec. I want that special ability to do a little bit more, so I'm going to allow them to throw it around a little bit more. Next up, fixers. I mean, their stuff is almost the same. I think I'm happy with their special ability. I'm going to just let it ride. No changes. Nomads, transportation experts, and ultimate road warriors. If I go down here, road warriors and gypsies who roam the highways. Very similar. My game is based in Nomads. All of the players are a part of a Nomad family that is a member of a Nomad clan, tribe, nation, right? There's layers to this shit, like tiramisu. I think that we're going to pull up the Nomad special abilities and allow them to still use family and bring in the special abilities from the Nomad book back in 2020. The Nomads are going to have a couple of more things available to them. If I pick up the Tribes book here, Neo Tribes, we're going to expand the Nomads to include some of this stuff. So if you remember, back in the day, they were construction labor, they were farm labor, they were sometimes delivery men, a lot of times circus performers like the Bloods. I'm going to include the special roles of family, so they still can call upon family, and then another role called Kith. And Kith is a really cool ability of getting things done within the family. So it's kind of like the fixer power of getting things done, knowing who to ask for various things. We're going to use Kith as this. And really, chapter 1 of our old game was Kith. I mean, Snitch Rich never called upon the family to send a horde of people with guns. He asked for favors, got specific things done. He talked to his mom. His mom got what he needed. Kith is going to become a thing in our game. Absolutely. And then they've got a couple extra roles in here that I'm interested in. If any of my players want to play them, I'm absolutely interested in fleshing these out. Roles like warrior that are kind of like solos, but really geared for nomad life. And in nomad life, they either engage at long ranges, 100 meters, 400 meters, long ranges, or up close and personal, hand-to-hand melee type stuff. And if I take that warrior ability to be extra deadly in hand-to-hand, and I apply it to new Cyberpunk Red, where hand-to-hand combat gets to strike twice, they go through half the armor by default if they've got augmentations, warriors could be real deadly. And I'm interested in that. So we're definitely have warriors in here. If any of my players want to play a Nomad warrior, they're welcome to it. And then the other one that we're going to pick up is this special ability of Reconnaissance, which is kind of a defensive ability for the scouts and the pathfinders, or outriders as they're called, outriders and pathfinders of nomad tribes. They get this ability of Reconnaissance, which is very defensive in nature. It allows them to bug out of a fight. It allows them to avoid some conflicts, that sort of thing. And I'm interested in this. So if any of my players want to play Outriders or Pathfinders and use the Reconnaissance skill, we can dive into this a little bit more. But I'm really interested in seeing this kind of defensive hide and evade skill set. The last thing that I think is really important is the runner. The runner is the delivery person. They're the people who, make the vehicles kind of sing. And so they get a special ability called Vehicle Zen, which is a whole lot like the solo and warrior abilities. They get pluses to initiative when they're behind the wheel of their vehicle. They can do some really cool stuff with their vehicles while they're driving. I think this runner role could be really cool and interesting for some of my players, where they get this Vehicle Zen special ability. And so I am very interested in this. There's a really cool note in here about scavenging, how Techs are specifically good at scavenging, and scavenging is a critical component of nomad society. There was a period of rampant scavenging. So this tribe will be good at scavenging. There will be people who are specialists in picking, right? Where they go through a building, they pick what's gold, and they move on, leaving the trash behind. That pretty well does our main update. As a game note, we're going to start the game with my homebrew rules. When the core book comes out, updating us, letting us know how these special abilities are really going to work, we will make adjustments, right? I'm A-okay with that. We will make adjustments. Can't wait to start making characters, guys. This is going to be a blast. As always, have fun and play well.